Hey guys, Nuke Loser here. Welcome to another one of those anecdotal language learning videos on YouTube. I'm sure you like those, since if you clicked on this video, I can probably guess that's what your algorithm's like. So you read the title, so I'm gonna just tell you how I learned how to read kanji. So back in 2021, I didn't really have a lot of motivation to do most things. I didn't have a lot of motivation to focus on schoolwork, so the only thing I really had motivation to do was learn Japanese. So I had come across Kotobabot on a language learning server on Discord, and after using it for like 3 to 4 months, I was able to read most of the most used kanji. So basically what I did is I just used Kotobabot on conquest mode. To do this, you put in the command conquest and then the decks you want. The decks I used were N3, N2, and N1. So yeah, I did that for like 1 to 2 hours, 30 minutes to 2 hours every day, or like every other day for 3 to 4 months. And after I had finished the decks, I was pretty much able to read most things. Now obviously at first you're not going to be able to read much. Like when I first started, I wasn't able to read anything. I'd always get it wrong or fail, but I kept going and eventually I was able to read more and more. So now I'm going to explain a little bit about how this method worked for me. When you're drilling kanji readings like this, after a long time you notice a lot of the patterns. For me, I stopped looking at each individual kanji and trying to memorize all the kunyomi and onyomi of each individual kanji. And instead, with this method of drilling using Kotobabot, you tend to see the whole word. From there, you'll start to pick up on a lot of the patterns, like when this kanji is in a 2-letter word, it's usually read shin, as in tsushin, shindai, or haishin. And you could do that with the other kanji in the words I just mentioned. When this kanji is in a 2-letter word, it's usually pronounced tsu, as in tsuro, tsukin, tsuyaku. This one is read rai, as in irai and shindai. This one is read hai, as in haizoku, shihai, haitatsu. You could go on and on for every one of the most commonly used kanji. Another thing you'll notice is that a lot of kanji that look similar will often have the same onyomi. For example, this kanji, which means work, has the onyomi ko. This kanji is also a kanji part, or radical, that appears in other more complex kanji. These kanji all contain the radical for work and are also all read ko. They all have the same onyomi, as in seiko, kougeki. Ko is actually a pretty common reading among kanji. These are also kanji that are pronounced ko, and the kanji that they're used to make, as in the kanji for which they're radicals, are also usually pronounced ko, as in gakko, koka, genko, toko. Eventually, you'll pick up on all these patterns for all the most commonly used words, and boom, you know how to read, for the most part. I think this way of learning kanji is not only more fun, because it's kind of like a game, but it's also simply more effective than sort of more traditional methods. It's no good to just go through and memorize all the readings for each and every individual kanji out of context. With this method, you're kind of forced to only see how each kanji is used in common vocabulary and how to read said vocabulary. The only downside to practicing like this is that I didn't really pick up on the meaning of each word. I didn't really memorize what each word meant. Now this isn't really a downside, since the goal is to simply read kanji, not necessarily to build vocabulary, but it is slightly annoying. I'll sometimes come across a word that I know how to read, but I have no idea what exactly it means. For example, this word I came across recently. I know from my practice that this kanji is read sui, as in suisoku and suisen. And this kanji is read I, as in ido. Though I could read it, I didn't exactly know what this word meant. I didn't know what this specific word meant. But since I knew how to read it, I could simply look it up, while before it would be harder because I wouldn't be able to read it in the first place. In summary, I think this method of just using Kotobabot every day for however long you have time is effective for 2 reasons. First, you're not painstakingly memorizing every kunyomi and onyomi of each of the 2,000 or so kanji. Instead, you're looking at common vocabulary and how each kanji is used, and its readings in the context of how it's used in words. Second, the game-like pace. When you're using kotobaba, you're constantly being drilled on the readings of words, and I think for some people at least, people like me, it helps build a kind of muscle memory or familiarity when it comes to kanji. Matt vs. Japan talks about it in a video on learning kanji. He calls it kanji fluency. He describes it as the point in your Japanese learning in which kanji stop looking like complicated blobs and actually look like something that you can recognize. He says recognizing kanji is like recognizing a face. You don't need to recognize a face by analyzing it, measuring the distance between the eyes, or like cheekbone width. The same way that if you're fluent in reading kanji, you can simply recognize a character when you see it, without having to analyze each radical and each stroke. When I say a word like haishin, I don't have to try to remember what each kanji is based on its components. I just see it and recognize it. I know that the word means broadcast, and it's read haishin. Kanji fluency, as described by Matt vs. Japan in his video, which I'll link below, is a very important skill in learning kanji and Japanese, and in my opinion, at least for now, kotobaba is one of the best ways to achieve it. Though it does require a lot of patience, especially in the beginning, and it might not be for everyone, but it is how I learned how to read kanji. When I took the JLPT N3 and N2, the kanji reading questions were really easy for this reason. I even met someone else who learned using kotobaba when I took N3, though unlike me, he actually did learn the meaning of each word. Anyways, that's the end of me talking about how I learned kanji. I'm now going to talk about my progress so far in my Japanese learning, seeing as this is kind of a sequel to my other video where I shared my Japanese learning process. As I said earlier, I took JLPT N2 recently, so the results haven't come out yet. I took N3 back in July and passed. Recently, I've been focusing more on input because my listening comprehension is still pretty trash, so instead of studying with books or texts, I've been watching anime, YouTube, podcasts. There's this one podcast about linguistics that's really interesting. It's called Yuru Gengogaku Radio, and I'll leave it in the description. Check it out. That's it from me. You can follow me on Twitter, I guess. It's one of the things you can do. Try using kotobaba. Keep it up. Proud of ya. See ya.